Man, Macon County, 1932. They called it a study, but we called it a setup. Free healthcare for bad blood. They said just more lies in a lab coat. Real talk.
Depression hitting hard, stomach taps in the spine.
Straight
Looking for a doctor just to keep a peace of mind. They promised us a cure for the sickness in the veins. Brain just stacked there with clipboards, watching all the pain. 400 brothers in the dark, no light to see. Just a number in a file, a specimen for the free.
They lied to us.
Penicillin hit the shelf back in 47.
It was right there.
They kept it in the drawer while our brothers went to heaven.
Real talk.
They watched them all grow on the bread of our lives, ignoring the tears in their eyes and the why. History written in a cold, sterile hand, searching for justice in a broken down land.
It's a heavyweight.
40 years of silence, 40 years of the rap, giving us a placebo while the fever stayed high. It wasn't just the man, it was the seeds they were sold. Children born with a debt that they beaten even old.
Innocent soul.
Watching the body break down just to see how it ends. Sold out by the ones who were supposed to be friends.
Who can you trust?
Treating us like lab rats in the cage of the state, leaving us to wither while we waited on fate.
It's deep.
The truth was buried in a mine county field,
Real talk.
waiting for the scars of the past to be unsealed. They traded our breath for a clinical note, while we struggle to keep our spirits afloat.
Keep pushing.
It wasn't a mistake, it was a choice they made. To let a man suffer while they stayed in the shade. The science without a soul is just a weapon in disguise. Look at the data and look into my eyes.
Look at me.
Whistleblower finally spoke in 72.
Long time ago.
The damage was done, what was a family to do? An apology years later doesn't fix the bone, doesn't bring back the fathers who were left all alone. We remember the names, we remember the cause. Those are lies that were traded in the dignity lost. No more blind trust in the man with the pen.
Never.
We won't be the subjects ever again. It's a weight on the chest that won't ever go away.
Lyric.
Gap that the government can never truly pay. We carry the story like a torch in the dark, weaving on history a permanent mark.
Real talk. They thought we just disappeared into the files, but we're still here, remembering to always stay vigilant.
1933 Wall Street wasn't happy with the New Deal. They wanted a dictator. They wanted a coup. They almost got it.
Boss.
Depression on the corner, bread lines long.
Struggle is real.
The giants of industry and the gift for some.
They greedy.
They didn't like a talk of the working man's rights, so they gathered in the dark to start a new fight. Familiar veterans of paramilitary force,
Man, it's wild.
to take the White House by a violent course.
Real talk.
They needed a leader, a man with the name to play the front man in they fascist game. Money on the table and a plan in the hand to take that democracy away from the land. They wanted a Caesar in a suit and a tie, selling out the country for a corporate lie. Smilly Butler, a Marine with the soul. He wasn't for sale, he wasn't for control. They offered him the crown, they offered him the seat, but he took the whole plot right to the street. He told the Congress what the Bakers had planned, to put a puppet in charge of the whole damn land.
He blew the whistle.
Names like Morgan and names like DuPont, getting everything that a billionaire would want. The business plot in the halls of the gold, the story of a nation that was almost sold. They hide behind the flag while they sharpen the blade, afraid of the progress that the people made. Fascism isn't just a thing of the past. It's the weight that the big money continues to cast. If the profit is threatened, the ethics are gone, waiting for the darkness to swallow the dawn. Congress held the hearings, they said it was true, and they buried the files and they hid it from you. No arrests made, no consequences dealt, just a quiet little secret that the government felt. The names were redacted, the truth was suppressed, while the architects of chaos were finally at rest. With the blueprint is there, it's still on the shelf. History always has a way of repeating itself.
Watch out.
A coup in the making with a dollar sign seal, fighting for a power that they didn't even feel. Watch the ones who say they love the nation most, why they raising up a glass to a fascist hope.
Real song.
The business plot, 1933 Wall Street. Tried to overthrow FDR, and they got away with it. Stayed awake.
Imagine being the voice of a movement and getting a package from the FBI. No name, just a tape and a suggestion. Real talk.
Walking the line for the civil rights dream, while the bureau was busy with a different scheme.
Dirty work.
They tapped the hotel, they tapped the phone, making sure the leader was never alone.
They watching.
Hoover in the office with a grudge in the pen,
Lyric.
trying to break the strongest of men.
Strong mind.
They recorded the private, they recorded the soul, just to keep the movement under their control. A letter in the mail with a daily advice, asking for the ultimate heavy price. You are dirt, they said, with a cold hard stare, trying to drive a hero into deep despair.
Real talk.
There is but one way out for you. They wrote a suicide note on the government coat. They sent the tapes to the family and the wife to tear apart the fabric of a dedicated life. Not an assassin's bullet, but a psychological hit to make a man crumble and make a man quit. They feared the message and they feared the man, so they went with the dirtiest part of the plan. The ink on the paper is a stain on the badge, trying to force the legend into a cage. They wanted him gone by his own hand for speaking the truth to a broken land. Surveillance is a weapon, privacy is the shield.
Protect yours.
Look at the cars that the agents would wield. If they can't stop the march, they'll attack the home, leaving you to face the darkness all alone.
Real talk.
He didn't break, he didn't give in,
You'll give in.
but the depth of the malice is a national sin. We talk about the mountaintop and the dream, but we forget the horror of the government scheme.
They try.
The FBI letter is a warning to us all, so watch for the ones who are waiting for the fall. Integrity is the only thing they can't take away, no matter what kind of games they play.
Keep your head.
A package on the porch with a tape of the lies, looking through the mirrors with 1,000 eyes. With the light of the truth is a hard thing to kill, even with a letter in a double wheel.
Real talk. The FBI sent MLK a letter telling him to kill himself. That's the real history. Never forget who the real agitators were. We only know these stories because someone had the guts to speak up. And look what it cost them.
Papers in the briefcase, secrets in the mind, leaving the safety of the status quo behind. Daniel leaked the papers back in '71 to show us how the war was actually being won.
Real talk.
They called him a traitor, they called him a spy, for showing the nation the depth of the lie. It's a lonely road when you're carrying the light in the middle of a long and institutional night. The truth has a price that most won't pay,
Boss.
while the rest of the world just looks the other way. A debt to the conscience and a debt to the soul, trying to take back a piece of the control.
Real talk.
Snowden in the terminal, Manning in the cell, telling stories that they weren't supposed to tell. Wavy Webb spoke on the CIA and the crack, and they made sure he never could find his way back. They professionally destroyed for a headline of truth, wasting the beauty and the fire of his youth. They protect the system, they don't protect the man. It's always been the right since the project began. A hero in the shadows or a traitor in the news, sending on the lens and the labels they use. They trade their freedom so that we can be aware. A weight on the shoulders that's heavy to bear. Every tag we know is a risk someone took. Open your eyes to open the pages of a classified book without the leap. But we're just swimming in the dark, waiting for a brave soul to provide the spark.
boss.
Most of these programs, they never really in. They just change the name and they follow the trend.
Real talk.
We need the ones who are willing to break the rules to keep us from being the government's fool.
No puppet.
History is a weapon if you know how to use it, but it's easy to lose if you choose to abuse it. Respect the whistle and respect the cause before the memory of the truth is finally lost.
The silence is loud, but the truth is louder still.
Boss ninja.
Waking the bond of a government will.
We owe it dead to the ones who stood alone. Making the secret of the masters known. Real talk. We use their careers and freedom, sometimes their lives, just so we know the truth. Think about that. "246 years, and not a single official word of sorry from the top. That's a long time to hold a grudge."
Real talk. Look, built on the back of a labor and a chain. Boss, well grown tall from the harvest of the pain. 2 centuries of building in a century of Jim Crow. With the seeds of the past are still starting to grow. We passed the resolutions and we expressed the regret, though we haven't paid the principal on the moral debt.
Real talk.
No formal statement from the office of the power while we're waiting on the justice in the final hour. The silence that lingers through the halls of the state, while the people are left to the hands of the fate. No official apology for the blood on the floor, just a closed window and a locked up door.
Real talk.
2008 in the House, 2009 in the Senate, but it wasn't a policy, it was just a minute. 9 words for a binding history, keeping the accountability a national mystery.
Real talk.
Other nations speak up for the sins of the old, but the American story remains to be told.
Boss fish.
No recognition of the wealth that was made on the backs of the brothers in the heat and the shade. The ink is dry, but the page is still blank.
Boss.
With no one to blame and no one to thank. A formal apology is a bridge to the new, but they're still afraid of what the truth might do.
Real talk.
There's more than the words, a shift in the soul to take the responsibility and lose the control. If you can't say the words, you can't fix the heart, and we'll always be living a world apart.
Boss fish.
We see the effects in the streets and the cells,
Real
the
talk.
stories that the data and the history tells. You can't heal a wound that you refuse to see, especially in the land that claims to be free.
Boss.
You're still waiting for the leader to stand at the mic and say the words that the people would like.
For real.
Until then, the history is a weight on the chest, keeping the nation from a true
Honest rest.
no apology given, no apology found.
Boss vision.
Just a heavy silence on the American ground. You carry the truth since they won't say a word, making sure the voice of the people is heard.
Real talk. No official government apology for slavery. Not one. We still wait, but we know who we are. We are.
1932, on county. They didn't see precious. They saw projects. Imagine looking a man in the eye while you let the feet were taken.
Real talk. Real talk.
Depression hitting the town, pockets looking thin.
Struggling.
Looking for a doctor just to let a little hope in. They promised us health care, promised us the best, but it was just a slow death put to the test. 400 brothers, skin like mine, waiting for a cure that was never in the design.
They know.
Penicillin hit the scene in 47, while they watched our people take the long road to heaven.
Real talk.
They watched the mold grow on the bread of our life,
Boss fishing.
ignoring the struggle and the tears of the wife. Clinical, no on a human being's end, while they pretend to be the doctor and the friend.
Real talk.
40 years of documenting the rot in the bone, leaving the whole generation to suffer alone.
How could you?
It wasn't just the men, the poison was sprayed to the wives and the babies in the family bed. Just an observation, like a science fair prize. While the light of the truth was hidden from eyes, they kept the medicine locked in the drawer, waging the cold-blooded, quiet little war.
Real talk.
They watch the mold grow on the bread of our life,
False vision.
ignoring the struggle and the tears of the wife. Clinical notes on a human being's end, while they pretend to be the doctor and the friend.
It's a violation that the soul can't forget, a national shame and a permanent debt. They studied the pain instead of the cure, keeping the heart of the darkness pure.
Real talk.
Whistleblower finally broke the silence in the press,
About time.
exposing the dirt in the clinical mess. 72 arrived with the damage was done, watching the setting of a stolen son.
False vision.
We don't forget the names, we don't forget the cost of the lives that the government simply tossed.
Lyric.
No more lab rats, no more lies, or looking at the world with open eyes.
They watch the mold grow on the bread of our life,
False vision.
ignoring the struggle and the tears of the wife. Clinical notes on a human being's end, while they pretend to be the doctor and the friend.
In Tuskegee Study 40 years, watching men die from science. Stay vigilant, because the past is always the lesson.
False. (1920s). Prohibition people were gonna drink anyway. We know that. So the government decided to make the drink a death sentence.
Prohibition in the air, the spirits went underground, looking for a paw where the law wasn't found. The feds got frustrated, they couldn't stop the flow, so they added the poison to let the bodies grow.
Real talk.
Then they trade alcohol, wood spirit in the blast, waiting for the working man to finally pass. A chemical deterrent, a legal design, putting the coffin at the end of the line.
They ain't right.
A new tactic for a war they couldn't win. Adding the venom to the bottle of gin. 10,000 citizens falling in the street, while the ones in charge kept the records neat.
Real talk.
Bootleggers ready still in the industrial heat, working, trying to keep the pride of tasting sweet. But the government chemists kept raising the dose, bringing the end of the line way too close. Blindness and Rickety paralysis in the hall. They didn't care who they killed as long as they fall. It wasn't about the law, it was about the control, trading the life for a dry state gold. Real talk.
A new tactic for a war they couldn't win. Adding the venom to the bottle of gin. 10,000 citizens falling in the street, while the ones in charge kept the records neat.
They knew the outcome, they knew the count. Watching the casualties begin to mount. And policy matters more than the heart. That's when the whole nation falls apart. We look back now and call it a dark time. The poisoning the people is a different kind of crime. 10,000 story stylists by the silk, while the power maintainment, tighten grip, real talk. Know what you're drinking, those are sauce, because history follows a violent course. They tell you it's for safety, tell you it's for good, while they burn down the neighborhood.
A new tactic for a war they couldn't win. Adding the venom to the bottle of gin. 10,000 citizens falling in the street,
deadly poison, the alcohol supply. You're in Prohibition, 10,000 people died. That's a fact. Don't let them tell you otherwise.
Project Sunshine sounds bright, right? But it's the darkest thing you'll ever hear. They needed bones, and they didn't ask. Real talk.
Nuclear fallout drifting in the sky. Boss strontium night passing the children by. They needed to know how the poison would stay in the bones of the youth at the end of the day. So they started a harvest of global design, crossing every single ethical line.
They really did.
1,500 samples, pieces of the small, taking the dignity from the morgue hall.
Real talk.
A harvest for a nuclear age, turning the innocence into a page. They took the bones without a word to the kin. A cold-blooded science, a national sin. Yeah, from Australia to Europe, the search was on. Taking the ribs after the breath was gone. Affirmation from the mother and the word to the dad. Just taking what they wanted from the life that they had. To measure the fallout of a bomb they built. Building their data on a mountain of guilt. Leg bones and spines in the government jar, while the parents were looking at a distant star. A harvest for a nuclear age, turning the innocence into a page. They took the bones without a word to the kin. A cold-blooded science and national sin. When a child becomes a specimen to test, that's when his humanity is put to the rest, Larry. There's no apology that can fill the space, or the memory of a stolen little face. Real talk. The fire stay hidden for a long, long time until the truth revealed the depth of the crime. They traded the saber for a number and a chart, tearing the fabric of the family apart. We gotta watch the ones who say they're in control, cause they trade a body just to say the role. Respect the dead and respect the youth, because the only real power is the honest truth.
Real talk.
A harvest for a nuclear age, turning the innocence into a page. They took the bones without a word to the king. A cold-blooded science and national sin. Project Sunshine. They secretly harvested body parts from dead babies for radiation testing. Never let them tell you history is boring.
San Francisco, 1960, a boat out in the bay. A secret in the air. You thought it was just the weather.
Golden Gate Bridge, the fog rolling in.
Classic.
Quickest time to miss was a biological sin. Operation Sea Spray, a military name.
Hey.
Using the city for a laboratory game.
Real
To racial Mars systems, floating on the breeze, bringing the whole population to their knees.
Wow.
800,000 people breathing in the cloud, while the truth was wrapped in the government shroud.
Balls fish.
We inhaled the mist from the water's edge.
Real talk, real talk, real talk.
A secret kept on a high level edge. They mapped out the wind with our very own lungs, while the truth was tied on their political tongue. Hospital scene cases they never saw before. The man lost his life while they looked for more. Rest in peace. They wanted to see how a germ was spread through the living streets where the people tread. A simulated attack on our own backyard, playing with lies while they kept up the guard, mapping the vulnerability of the West Coast soul to keep a tighter grip on the ultimate control. Real talk.
We inhaled the mist from the water's edge.
Real talk, real talk.
A secret kept on a high level edge. And that double wing with our very own lungs. While the truth was tied on that political tongue.
If they do it any day, imagine the night. All's vision, just in the darkness out of our sight. We're just coordinates on a military map, caught in the middle of a biological trap. Real talk. Between 49 and 69, hundreds of tests, using our cities for their hidden quests. Subways in New York, light bulbs on the track, and there ain't no way to take the breath back. Big say it's for the best, say it's for the best. Why they lose the citizen for the stress test? Keep their eyes on the horizon, keep your mind clear, because the danger is closer than it may appear. Real talk.
We inhaled the mist from the water's edge.
Real talk, real talk.
The secret kept on a high level edge. And left out the wing with our very own lungs. While the truth was tied on that political tone.
Operation Sea Spread was just the beginning. They tested on us for decades. Stay awake out there.